When you're learning game development, you probably don't want to just make one game and that's your game dev career and you're just never gonna make any other games, but you probably want to make sure that you can keep making games. You'll make your first game, then you'll go on to your second game, and you want to keep doing that down the line, making every game better and like bigger and bolder and earning more revenue. That's at least what we want to do here at Bite Me Games, and that's where this month's book club books comes in, which is Long-Term Game by Joachim Aachen. If you don't know who Joachim Aachen is, I didn't know it either. I had to look it up. He's been trying out multiple game studios. He used to work at Supercell, who are like the makers of Clash of Clans. And then he started his own studio, Next Games, which is more of a mobile-focused game, who have worked with some like IP stuff, such as Stranger Things and The Walking Dead. And he's also part of a game fund where he helps with VC funding and incubators and things like that for other game studios. So he definitely has more of that business approach versus the creative approach, if you ask me, which is also a focus point of this book, more of just the general business processes. So more of the things that honestly I feel a lot of you don't really have. Like sure, you can do all the stuff you want with like making the optimal game and designing and programming it as good as possible, but there needs to be some kind of company structure. I know if you're someone who's like, I just want to make games for fun and I don't ever feel like I want to make money from my games, I don't really want to make it my living, this is probably not going to be the video for you. So we have other stuff as well. This one really goes into things like managing employees, getting funding for your games development that is not always just publishers, and some more of the general strategies to not just make one game, but to actually make a games company. That's what we also have. Like sure, Songs Overjade may be cancelled, but that doesn't mean our studio is over, because we've always been preparing for having a longer term future and not just work from game to game, but actually have that vision. So the book has 7 main chapters. I'm gonna go through all of them, give you my very core thoughts about every chapter. And then at the end of the video, I'll also give some more of my general thoughts about the book and whether I recommend it, yes or no. And the first chapter of the book talks a bit about mindset. This is a pretty short chapter, and I think I made a pretty good video that summarizes this, which is the why of being a game developer. If you want to make a game studio, you need to be slightly crazy in the head, if you ask me, because there are plenty of other careers you can pursue that will give you more money and less work and all of that stuff, less stress. So you need to have a really solid reason why you want to be a game developer. And this why leads into 2 things that really you should have if you want to become like the founder of one of those long-term game companies. And it is high intelligence, and by that he means just being able to learn a lot of stuff. You're gonna need to learn marketing, learn programming, learn art, learn everything really. Be able to absorb a lot of knowledge and learn from it quickly. And then the second thing is high tenacity, because starting a game studio, it takes 3 to 10 years usually. Like your first games, probably not gonna be a hit, especially if you still need to learn from zero how you're going to run your studio. So having that strong why will give you that tenacity to just keep going through the slogfest, to keep going when things aren't going optimally, when you're not making the progress you're wanting to. And instead you can just focus on, like the title of the book says, the long-term game. So don't get into game development thinking that you're gonna make some quick game with Game Maker Studio or with Unity or whatever, and immediately you're going to be rich, because you're just going to be disappointed instead. Once you've decided that, hey, I do have the mindset and I do want to make this game, there's the part of getting the game idea. This is a topic that you can go to make an entire video about if you want, just about finding the right game idea. It's a question you have as well. And the author, once again, has 2 main approaches here that you can do. One is you have a crazy dream of a game. Like this is something that will drive you a lot, like just from a tenacity and intrinsic motivation perspective of like, this is the game that I wish that existed and I am going to make it a reality. That's one thing. The advantages here is, hey, you really are driven by your game. You really want to make it, which gives you more of that tenacity and more of that strong why and mindset. But on the other hand, it's not the most predictable in terms of how much revenue will you have. If you're truly really driven about a very specific niche or a very specific game idea, maybe if you spend like enough time making it the absolute best game, you're going to have success, but it's less predictable. So maybe you don't really immediately want to risk that crazy dream that you have of a game, in which case you get a second type of game idea in his opinion, and that is the pragmatic approach. This is where you're just going to look at, okay, what is selling what can I make and what is going to be like the highest return on investment basically. This one is a bit of a, for you guys it's controversial, because when I say something like this, it's like, oh, but what's the passion? If you make a game with passion, you're always gonna sell. Maybe, that's true. But there is also definitely some point in just figuring out what are the genres that are hot right now, such as mascot horror or just like city builder kind of games. And just looking at, okay, what does the market want? What is something that we have a proven track record of will sell? And then just purely focusing on that. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that whatever genre and whatever idea you end up going with, always make sure you have the team for it. That's the mistake we did with Songs of Everjade, is we made a game that we didn't really have a good team for. We had a very programmer heavy team, but not really that much in terms of art. Yet we were trying to make a game that required a lot of art and didn't include any complex mechanics. So we weren't even utilizing our developers to their strengths. That is something we've learned now, like we're a programmer heavy team, so that means that we should focus on games where mechanics are much bigger, so more of strategy and management kind of games really. These are like kind of somewhat generic pieces of advice still. Now we get to the leading part, which is where I think the book really shines. This is probably one of my favorite chapters, especially because our team right now is like 5 people who are all working on a single game. And if you have that big of a team already, you also need to get into things like actual leadership roles. I know that indie game dev is more of an artistic thing sometimes, but I think that having some form of corporate structure, some form of dedicated leader roles is incredibly important. And what the book also goes into a lot of detail about is things like a mission. I'm gonna be honest, we don't really have that much of a mission yet at Bite Me Games. But the book does talk about how everyone should know what that mission is. Personally, I think missions, I try to avoid them a little bit, especially when you're beginning, because they can be a bit of a trap. It's similar to like having a website. It's like if you're just getting started, it doesn't matter what your mission is. Your mission should just be make something like your first game. Only once you're really taking this more serious, then is when you can actually consider, okay, what is my mission? Okay, we're going to deliver the next generation experience of strategy management games or something. Or we're going to make games that are in the top 10 of this specific category. Whatever it is, everyone should know it. And having that mission also just means that you can focus on one common goal. What this then also allows you to do by having that mission and that goal is to actually plan how would success look. Because right now for us, success is purely whatever money we make. But that's not the best indicator of how good are we doing. If you say something like, hey, our goal is to be in the top 10 of a specific genre, you can focus much more on what needs to happen and how are we going to get to that mission? How are we going to get to that end goal? Also, I've talked about this in other videos as well, but one of the best things that this book once again talks about is how should you do one-on-ones? I know it sounds very corporate, it sounds very solo sometimes, but one-on-ones are extremely important, especially if you have that kind of leadership role, like 5 people, you don't know what everyone is doing all the time, but you should still be able to help with prioritization, understanding what are the things people are struggling with, how can you help and things like that. Even if you're just 2 people, plan something in like a weekly one-on-one at least, where you just have a dedicated formal point of contact, where you just go over certain points such as what are you making progress on, are you stuck on something, do you still like the work you're doing, and so on. Next up, we get funding. And this was the chapter where you could really see what the author was focused on, because he's like, the first page of the funding chapter is like, there are 3 ways to get funding. You can just bootstrap yourself, which is what we did at Bite Me Games, of, you know, just we're not paying ourselves out, we're just putting in our time, putting in whatever extra money we have and starting a studio that way. That's like a way to do it. Not always the best way because it's a lot of risk for you. You can get a publisher who, when you pitch your game idea to, you try and get funding that way. And then he started about the third thing, which is investors and incubators and things like that. We made a whole funding tier list as well. I'll link it up there if you are interested in funding your game. But you can tell really that Joachim is part of that investment sphere, because the rest of this chapter basically talks about how does venture capital work, how does equity work, how do funding rounds work, how does seed money work. So it can be interesting, but if I'm being honest, like sure, you maybe find it interesting, but I don't think it's something that we would be doing anytime soon with our studio. And I feel like it's also not what our audience really is looking for. So I'm not going to dive in deeper into how does the venture capital system completely work. The one thing here that I got the feedback from a viewer at some point that our funding tier list was completely wrong is that the advantage that publishers and investors have that I do want to tell you here is that it's not your own money that you're playing with. You're using other people's money, so you have more of a tolerance for failing. I think that's an understandable thing. However, if you're doing this more as a hobby, it's a lot of dependency already. Like if you want to go and get investor money, if you want to get publisher funding, you're going to have to quit your main job. And once again, not what our audience is looking for right now, as far as I can tell. So I'm not really the biggest fan of it. Like right now, just bootstrap it. We've been able to do it somewhat successfully. If you approach it the right way, it's definitely still a valid approach. Next up, we get to the validation stage. This is something that, hey, we're not even good at ourselves, so I figured, hey, maybe I can learn something new here. It's like yes and no. The issue is that Joachim is very much a mobile developer, and the mobile landscape is completely different from the indie studio landscape in terms of monetization and in terms of just things that you track. So when Joachim talks about, hey, we need to validate how successful is our game, he's talking about things like, what is the average user spend? How much time do they spend each session on their game? How many days in a row do they get back? How many percentage of our total audience plays 7 days consecutively? So very much more of the like live services or more of the mobile free-to-play with in-app purchases model of figuring out how successful our game is. Now, I do think that determining certain KPIs is really important, and it's something that we haven't been doing enough with our previous games. A very common one that you can already look at is things like median time played. Steam just shows it to you. And for us, for Sons of Evergate, it was like 7 minutes, which honestly, it isn't enough. For the industry, it was like 12 minutes. Also, once again, especially considering the genre of game it is, it's not good. It should be higher. So determining some KPIs and having some kind of logging to see like where are players sitting at, how long are they playing, is going to be very important. There's also validation in terms of feedback of just people being like, hey, this game is fun, yes or no? Not covered in this book really, it's all just purely about the stats such as return on ad spend and things like that. And then the last chapter talks a bit more about the trials and tribulations, because Joachim also has had some failures in his life. He's very open about it, and I like that. Like the first 6 years before he started working at Supercell, he tried to get a project launched, but it just never really worked out for him. So he also talks about what to do when things go wrong. How should you handle failed launches for your game, failed funding rounds, or certain key people of your team leaving? And you may be like, hey, this is very interesting, tell me more about it. What should I do when I like have a game launch and it fails? But the problem is, I don't think we're the audience really, because it's things like, oh, downsize your office or reduce the amount of server costs that you have for managing your like multiplayer mobile game. And it's like, cool, this is interesting. It's like good to know that there are these real problems, and it's like very much not just a perfect world. But once again, for most of us, I don't think you're going to be firing anyone anytime soon, or you're going to be downscaling your office, because most of you are just working from home. So instead, I think it's better to accept that failure is going to happen at some point and prepare for it in advance, and having the tenacity to just keep on going even if you hit that failure. Even though we realized that, for example, hey look, Sons of Evergate, it's not going to come out, we just spent like a few months on it and we're not really going to get any return on it. Okay, we can still survive until our next game comes out. And figuring out ways to do that is really important. One thing that I've learned about recently that I think can be interesting as well is doing something like a pre-mortem, which is where when you have your game idea, you sit down and you just ask yourself, okay, if my game fails at launch, why would it be? So you can already start working towards fixing that possible issue of why your game would fail in the first place. So what are my overall thoughts on this book? I think it was okay. I don't think this was the best book I've read. It was pretty decent. However, it's a pretty short read. It's like 181 pages. And I feel like it lacked somewhat of a focus. It talked about like all of these things at the same time. It talked about leading a team. It talked about having a vision. It talked about just getting the idea of your game. It talked about validation, and I feel like for 180 pages, that means that every chapter was about like 20 to 30 pages, whereas there are entire books just written about game ideas, written about validation. And I think that I would have been much happier if this book was just 180 pages of team management, of like just business management in general, and just leaving out that validation aspect for the most part, or not even spending those like 10 pages on the game ideas, because in the end, it's nothing new. The real best part of this book for me was by far the team management and the leadership part, because it's something that is very much applicable to me. I would pick up the book just for that and like leave the other chapters even, but I also felt like, you know, I am not this book's audience. I'm not a mobile developer and I'm not looking for venture funding. I think that is already a very niche down audience as well. So I don't think that this is like going to be the best book for you. He also has a blog and a newsletter that has pretty much all of the same lessons that he talks about in this book that you can just read as like different chapters on that newsletter. So I would just go through those instead. If you're not in that very specific niche, I would go for either reading more general business specific books. Something like Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David was one that I really liked in terms of general business management, or just go completely into a book that is focused, that is like pretty big, about indie game development, such as something like Conquer the Indie Games Industry. Those are much better, I think, and are much more focused on the one specific thing that they're working on. Anyways, I hope this has like still taught you something new. I'm curious, how big is your indie studio size? Do you feel like you have a mission, or are you like, bro, I have no clue, I just want to make games, leave all of the long-term stuff away from me right now? Or do you actually take the time and look at how am I gonna be sustainable 5 years from now? I'm really interested, honestly, because I have no clue how my audience is in that regard. I know you all wanna make games, but I don't know how big you're dreaming. That's what it comes down to. That's all I really have to say. If you like this kind of game development related content, head down below and subscribe, as we upload 2 videos every week talking about the things we learned, talking about our mistakes, and just sharing all of the information that I've learned about game development with you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!